Hello.
Hi. All right. So, can everybody see what this is?
No.
No?
Yes.
Well,
Wallet.
this is a wallet.
Oh, good.
And inside of this wallet, I'm not going to show you, but it's a credit card. And a credit card is something that we use to access our money. But is it really our money?
No.
And now think of it in a different way. What if we handed a newly graduated high schooler with a set of new car keys? Now this high schooler only has about 1 year of experience driving, and they don't really know how the car works or what to do with it. Would you think that's kind of crazy? A little unsafe, maybe? Because the car goes pretty fast and it's brand new. And so if we think that's unsafe and that's crazy, why do we then give teenagers the ability to pull out legal lines of credit without having any knowledge of what they are or how they affect their life? According to the Federal Reserve Board in 2018, titled A Survey of Household Economics and Decision Making, 39% of American houses feel that they could not cover a $400 emergency expense with either cash or with their savings. So as we can see, there is a need to teach individuals and households how to have correct financial literacy. My specific purpose of this speech will be to persuade you that classes, particularly in public high schools, should have mandatory financial literacy classes so that particularly teens, which are one of the most vulnerable demographics for predatory loans and for high interest rates, can have knowledge on how to prevent themselves from economic hardship in the future, particularly in adulthood. I am a college student, and I've had to deal with scholarships and loans that weren't really loans, but were loans, and who to pay them to. And so I know that there is a real need for financial literacy and for change within public school systems. So in my speech, we'll go over a couple of reasons why financial literacy is important. We'll discuss the severe economic vulnerability that teens face right out of high school without any sort of financial basis or understanding. Second, we will talk about how the high school classroom can actually protect and shield and give knowledge to those teens on how to overcome those vulnerabilities. And then third, we'll visualize a better financial future where teenagers can control their wealth instead of having debt control them. This falls directly with the organization aligns with Jumpstart Coalition for Personal Finance Literacy. Their mission is to educate children from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade on financial literacy and how they can graduate with those steps to success. So first, let's examine the crisis that makes the high school area the most important step for teens to know what to do with their money. So a study found that there is a critical deficiency in foundational knowledge at the time that teens gain access to legal lines of credit. So right when they don't know what they're doing, they're given access to a bunch of things that could really, really mess up their life. So there is a story that my dad likes to say. When he was in college, just graduated high school, and before he was about to serve a mission, his friend had ordered a credit card online. And this credit card had very, very high interest rates, and his friend had used this credit card to buy a new car. And then this friend missed a couple of payments, and then suddenly he had a 29% APR. And he was very confused and scared, and suddenly he could not pass a background check for housing. And he couldn't get his scholarships because the government was withholding those funds. And so my dad was very grateful that he had the intuition to not order that online credit card. But his poor friend now, by the age of 20, was in mountains of debt. And so clearly we can see that this happened, over 20 years ago, and it's still happening today. So it's part of a cycle that needs to be broken. According to the state-mandated Financial Education Fund, on their article of Does High Costs Affect Borrowing, published by the FNIRA in the Investigation Education Foundation from their study in 2015, author and Dr. M. Harvey cited that 38% of young adults between the ages of 18 to 34 resorted to high-cost loan services with an annual percentage rates of over 400%. So they were paying a lot more than what they were being given. And it was very predatory. So they were going to things like payday loans and very sharky companies to give them things like mortgages and car loans. So as we can see, this lack of education locks people, and especially young adults, into wealth gaps. And we can see that waiting to educate these students is bad. If a lot of people don't go to college, most high school graduates actually go into the workforce before they go into college. And so they don't have that education to tell them what to do with their paychecks, what a W-4 is, how to pay taxes. And so if they're waiting, then they don't get that knowledge and that base that their peers get before them. And so according to the importance of financial literacy and their open article titled Open a New Field, the economists Anna Marie Lussard and Olivia Mitchell from the American Economic Association stated that financial knowledge is a formal investment in human capital. So high school allows for equitable access for people to have knowledge on financial literacy, whereas college can actually block it, because not everybody goes to college. Another support touch point is the 2026 Holistic Financial Literacy Education, laying the groundwork with equitable instructional strategies. Published a book from the authors Bongsakai Zakaya and Bonifay Lafaux titled Punished by Withholding. So basically, high schools can actually punish teenagers by withholding information on financial literacy, things like budgeting and balancing. And we know that high schoolers ask for this. I know when I was in high school, I was frequently frustrated, and my peers were by classes that kind of felt meaningless, or we learned how to do abstract concepts but not how to file taxes. And we can see that that hurts high schoolers. So the problem is clear, but there is a solution. The solution is to implement mandatory personal finance classes in order to graduate, so it would be either for juniors or for seniors in high school. And then this description of the solution would be to have a state level 1 semester class on skills like budgeting, credit scores, debt management, interest loans, and so on and so forth. This could satisfy the requirement for everybody to have that baseline education. It would also equal the playing field for those who have more money compared to those who don't. So you could have that equal knowledge base. So the plan of action for all of you could be to advocate to your board and state legislations and your city councils for economic education. I know that as we educate teenagers and as we help touch base on our own personal financial literacy and advocate for those who don't have that information, that we could see a wealthier society and a less debt, shackled by debt society, which is not good for anybody. So thank you.
I think we just